Welcome everyone to the first Porter community meeting in 2023. Today it looks like we have got pretty full agenda to go through. Here we have me, Caroline, Stephen, and Brian. And thank you, Caroline, for taking notes.
Yep.
So we will start on the first item on the agenda after the introductions, which is want to contribute to Porter. We have issues that are suitable for new contributors at the link that's linked in the agenda.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind people that if you're ever looking for something to do, I know sometimes the issues don't always make sense. Everything on this page, though, if you go to this link, we have a lot more explanation and context and should be pretty a lot more straightforward to pick up and work on. I've been tagging new things every couple days, so we have a whole bunch of stuff if anyone would like to help out. Some of this I'm just saying in case someone watches the recording. Steve and Brian, I know you contribute already.
This isn't specific to Porter contributing, but one of my coworkers is interested in starting to do some TypeScript work for the VS Code plugin. I sent him that issue that you posted on Slack yesterday, so he's going to start looking into that because he wants to get involved in Porter a little bit more.
Oh, that would be great. I just updated the contributing guide for the VS Code extension so that it tells you actually what to build, what commands to run, how to test it. So if they run into any problems, please just point them to me.
Cool, awesome. The next agenda item is if anyone has any feedback for the community meeting, please let us know. Or if you have any specific topics that you want to talk about, feel free to put it on the agenda, or you can just come and hang out with us and listen to us talking. That'd be good too. And Caroline, do you have any add to this bullet point?
No, I was probably going to put this out to the mailing list and bump it a couple times on Slack, just to make sure that maybe we can bring in a couple more people and make sure that the content we have is helpful to everyone. I know we've been kind of like skipping meetings lately, and some of that is the holiday and we're finally coming back, but just in case like what we're talking about every couple weeks isn't quite what people were looking for, I wanted to make sure we were opening that up for feedback.
Cool. The next item is recently, I guess it was yesterday, we did a release for Porter because I messed up something in the previous release for the plugins file flag to install multiple plugins. So we did a fix, released it, and there's also a blog post to kind of explain, going into more detail what happened and how you use this feature. And I thought that it would be interesting to also do a little demo here for that new feature.
Yeah, that would be great.
Well, before I start, does anyone have questions? If not, I can just go directly into the demo.
Yeah.
Not today.
Cool. I will share my screen. Cool. Uh-oh. Well, clearly I'm trying to figure out my Bluetooth connection. Cool. So first, I just want to make sure that I have the latest release installed. And you can see here it's 1.0.6. So if you, before this new feature, what you would do in order to install a plugin is you would have to run Porter plugins install, and you give the plugin name, let's say it's Azure, and then you can give like some information like a version or which version you want to install. By default, Porter would install the latest. You can ignore the telemetry because I don't have it set up. So you would install a plugin like this one by one with each Porter command. What this feature will do is now you can pass in a file that has plugins configuration, like what kind of what plugins you want to install defined in the file, and then Porter will know to install them in alphabetical order based on the plugin name. So what the plugin file definition would looks like, it looks like this. It will have schema type and what the schema version is, and then the each plugins that you want to install is defined under the plugins. The plugin name would be the key, and then the value is will have version and feed URL and or the direct URL to the plugins binary, or there is a mural. Basically, the original flags that you could pass into the plugin install command. Now you can define them in this file. And then this plugins field is defined in a map structure, because we didn't want to give a false impression in terms of what the order of the plugins is installed. We want to make sure that if, let's say, user defined it like Kubernetes first, they may assume, if it's an array, they may assume the Kubernetes will be installed first. So in order to preserve the order, we use the map data structure and then sort the plugins by plugin name alphabetically. So we make sure that each time all the plugins are installed in a consistent manner. So now I'm going to run the command. As you can see, the plugins are installed one by one, like so. So this feature is nice because we will be able to use it in the Porter operator, so that when the operator installs plugins, it can install multiple plugins with just one Porter job, instead of having to create each one for installing a single plugin.
Hey, so Yingrong, is that?
Yes.
So awesome. I know we've been talking about this for a while. So is there additional follow-up work that we need to do in the operator to pick up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that is still in the in progress. I have already have a draft PR up for
great.
it, but I'm just trying to make sure the behaviors are all behave how we expected. So
okay.
yes.
Yeah, let me know if you need anything there, because I'm in the process of getting all my stuff to work on M1 ARM. And having this image is the last thing I need, I think, because I've been updating non-Porter services as well. But yeah, I think that this is the last little gap, I think, to get everything working. So
great. Yeah, I will definitely keep you updated.
I think we're pretty close, right?
Yes.
Now that we have 1.0.6 out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we've been through that operator PR multiple times now, and I think it's in a pretty good state too.
Great.
Awesome. I will stop sharing. Yeah, so another note on this is if you have existing plugins file when the 0.5 release was 1.5, 1.1.0.5 release, please make sure that you update your plugin file format in order to use it with the latest release. Awesome. The next thing that I want to talk a little bit more about is the kind of what I am planning to make changes to the operator next. We have couple schema slash naming convention changes to the Kubernetes CRD and the API groups that I would like to make those would be breaking changes. So I would like to make them sooner rather than later. I know that, you know, Brian and Stephen, you guys are running Porter internally. So I don't know how disruptive these changes will be for you guys. So I just wanted to put it out here to see if
Yeah, no, but we can definitely take a look and review, but I'm sure it'd be easy to adapt to. So
okay. Yeah, I was thought that we might as well bite the bullet now rather than later.
absolutely, yeah.
Carolee, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't think so. It's mostly just, you know, we'd rather break people now when there's not as many people affected by it. If you do think that there's going to be a problem, there may be more we can do to potentially dual support both for a while, but that would have a developer cost. So,
Right.
you know, if we have to do it, we can, but just let us know if that's necessary.
Yeah. Cool. And then the next item, at least for me, that I'm thinking to do after the change on the API naming convention and the multiple plugin installation is to figure out how to clean up the resources that the Porter agent creates during the I'm losing that during the process. So there is this, there's a link that Caroline posted in the comment. In terms of the best practice, they mentioned that there is an option sometimes the operators would just leave the resources there and the sysadmin would go in and delete manually. I don't know if
That's not as fun.
Yeah, I really think that'll become a problem quickly for anyone using the operator regularly.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we really need this. Like, for
Yeah.
example, you know, Azure uses this for our marketplace to install bundles, and that's pretty high volume. And
yeah.
I'd rather not write something custom to clean it up if we can put it in the operator.
I've used Cloud Custodian as a cloud governance policy stuff, and they have Kubernetes support. So yeah, I've been prototyping using that and looking at the labels on all the Porter operator resources to help with some of that. But having this kind of built in and tweakable would be more ideal for sure.
Yeah, and you know, there may be configuration options that we can evaluate where it's not deleted immediately, potentially, depending on the success of the workflow, the action. Maybe how long do you keep failed runs so people have a chance to inspect them, or just the ability to toggle it, you know, kind of a bit like a feature flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
like a TTL on it or something that lets it
Exactly. Yeah.
expire after a certain amount of time.
Exactly.
Lets it
Yeah.
expire after a certain amount of time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there is a bit of design needs to happen before for this feature before the implementation in terms of how we want to implement it. Because I definitely look at the logs from the container to see what the error message is if the porter command failed. So this delete feature will definitely need to work better with how we do debugging in terms of developer experience.
Yeah. And to be clear, that's pretty much why it didn't get implemented at the very beginning, is because it was so much more convenient for debugging, but we're well past that point. So yeah, this will be great. I'm so glad you're working on this next.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of my plan for now. So if especially with Brian and Steven, if there's anything that you think would be good to have or is necessary for V1, because that's kind of the ultimate goal that we're working towards right now, please let me know so that we can make sure that it's included in V1 or at least have a conversation about it.
Yeah, and just to add, like, please, reach out too, because it would be very straightforward for us to test any kind of in development changes in our infrastructure really quickly. So,
okay.
And yeah, it might be time to have a little discussion of how, because we have a pretty nice, easy to set up test environment for some of this stuff too. It might be time to visit kind of how do we share that and maybe get some of that into the operator project itself.
Right. Yeah, that would be great.
I'm big on optimizing development workflow time.
Because I remember we did have a while back a conversation in terms of we want to improve the test environment for the operator.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have stuff that almost at this point I think could be just lifted and shifted into the operator project. Just get rid of our stuff that we've been working on around it until we open source that.
Cool. I'm not entirely sure that do we have a ticket or an issue for that? So it may be helpful to keep.
I can cut a ticket on that.
Okay, great.
Or at least look for one first. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Thank you. I think that's all I have on this one. So if no one has other comments or thoughts, we can move on to the next agenda item, which is the grpc questions.
Yeah, so we have a proof of concept grpc service running there right now that it can list out installations that you have in a Porter config. The thing I ran into is when you have the long-lived Porter client connection, because of how plugins get called and how the connection to the grpc endpoint that the plugins use is managed by that client, doesn't really work to do multiple RPCs with the same client the way that the Porter client is set up now. I hacked in kind of a workaround where every RPC creates its own Porter client connection. And so it just runs a porter.new and porter.connect. And so there's some ways to optimize around that, and that might be the way to go. But I just kind of wanted to talk about what do you think the right option for doing that is? Because I could write some middleware for the grpc server that sets up a new client and then passes it to the RPC via the context and then closes it when the client is done. And so we could at least have some, cleanup and make that client smaller to where we don't have to like read in configs. We can have some persistent configs that we pass around. But ultimately, it seems like a client per RPC is the way that it's going to have to work unless we can figure out a separate way to handle the plugin connection stuff.
One thing that I was just realizing as you were saying this is that, ultimately we'd like to use this in the operator and have the service run as a service in the cluster.
Mm-hmm.
And you had mentioned config, and I just wanted to remind everybody that the configuration used by Porter is different, possibly based on all sorts of factors, such as at very least the namespace. They could have completely different plugins, for example, activated in a namespace. So one namespace, for example, could be using the Kubernetes plugin and be storing things that way. And another one could be using something more persistent and storing it in HashiCorp Vault or in Azure or something like that, and could have other configuration differences as well in the Porter config file. So if we do want to do something different and not do a client per connection, we'll have to keep that in mind of how we would deal with that from a deployment perspective of like, how do we deploy these services then?
Yeah.
We do get that though by client per connection though, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, is that
So maybe
we
that's a reason to
optimize.
stay that path for until we don't.
So the actual client itself is not super big. And it's not memory intensive. So I wouldn't have too much of an issue with having a client per RPC. I would just want to make sure that we have the right like new4 porter.new4 instead of porter.new so that we don't have to read in the entire environment every single time we set up a new client for an RPC, because that's where it really could start slowing down. But if we have some persistent configs that we can just pass between all these clients, then that I think a client per RPC is quite a bit cleaner. Now, Brian did absolutely hammer the server the other day and run into a little bit of performance issues, but I told him that I don't care because it's proof of concept and I'm not trying to optimize yet. So
yeah, I think that's a really good reminder that we could iterate on this and at least get something working now with what you have.
Now,
I'd be happy to help with a new4 if you run into weirdness around initializing Porter, and injecting dependencies differently.
Yeah, that might be something to collaborate on. I did test it with 30 RPCs per second, and it had no issues running on my laptop at that rate. So I don't anticipate that high of usage in the anytime near future for this, but long term, I would like to see
20
it.
requests per second seem to be fine. With which is good starting place, right?
I mean, I wouldn't look too deeply at Porter's performance in other places too. So like, that's probably better than what we're clocking in other areas. It's pretty good.
It's new territory, right?
And also this was each RPC client is reading in the environment, setting up its new config. So like this, quite a bit of overhead, unnecessary overhead. But so I'm really thinking that definitely the best way for now to move forward is client per RPC. And then we revisit if we start having issues with this. But I think to actually make the plugin stuff multi-thread safe would require a lot of effort inside Porter to rewrite and figure out how, like you're talking setting up semaphores to know if there's other connections that are still using the plugin and keeping it alive. And it seems to be too much for this.
This is what happens when you have developers who are former like high performance network test engineers and stuff looking at this.
I mean, that's great. I think that over the lifespan of the feature, right? We may end up needing something like that. At the moment, I just love to get the feature to the point that we could put it in a service on a cluster and then be able to extract outputs and then unblock that, so that people can move forward with it.
Yeah, that's really close. So
Yeah, that's what we have. I just need to optimize the client configuration for each RPC, and then we got to nail down exactly what we want the protobuf to look like for that use case. Because right now I only have list installations defined as an RPC.
Yeah.
But we got 2 more that we need to just make sure is what we want. We can maybe talk about that too.
Yeah,
but
the other
we're
thing
super close.
I think you told me at the time that you have basically a hidden entry point into Porter right now, and you're using the normal Porter command.
Yes.
So did you want to talk at all about, is that working well for you? Do you have plans for when or if we'd like to make that essentially a separate, slimmer,
so
its own binary, basically, with
right,
potentially its own agent?
So we started going down its own binary, and we realized that this is going to be 90% copied code with one tiny little new, because basically the binary is reading in your configs from the environment, setting up your tracing, and then setting up your Viper stuff and your Cobra. And so that is basically exactly what the Porter binary does now, with just an additional server run command that's hidden. So it's more of a matter of, this is just quick and easy to get this implemented as is. If there's a reason where we don't want that in there, then I'd be fine with V1 having its own binary, but I don't see a huge benefit right now for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I started working on the dual binary approach, and I think it like Stephen was saying, a lot of cut and paste and everything. So maybe there's a way, maybe we review about like, how do we look at refactor to pull out common things to be shared more easily?
Yeah, I have been working in my free time occasionally to create like a reusable library or package, because every plugin, every mixin, and things like that have essentially the same patterns for its main and setting up the CLI. So I have been working towards improving that. Yingrong and I just have been meeting and talking about fixing some of how we do config loading, because we do multiple passes of config. And we're improving that, and should see a PR next week to tighten that up so that we don't do extra unnecessary passes over the config file. And it'd be great to maybe spend then an extra couple days on that and just get the reusable extracted libraries, because I do have functions that are just in a branch somewhere that we could pull in and maybe start reusing a little bit more, at very least between the mixins, because all the mixins duplicate a whole bunch of this logic, and it's really hard to keep it maintained across them when we make improvements.
Yeah, the other thing that kind of drove me towards using the existing Porter binary was the fact that the Porter plugins run as a sub process. So like when you actually run the plugin, it runs the Porter command plugins run. And so that basically we would have had to duplicate the same plugins process in the RPC binary as is in the main Porter CLI. So yeah, that's just another
one advantage or just thing to consider with splitting the CLI is that the Porter app, right, the data structure that's in PKG is still the same, and we would use it between the two. But we may be able to eliminate some of the code paths and do basically tree shaking to make it smaller and remove dependencies that aren't used, so that we won't get pinged, for example, CVEs in packages we don't use because we're not running bundles, for example. So like things like Docker and containerd and stuff would fall out and not be compiled into these binaries.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
But you could essentially just make a tailored user interface in the CLI package, the CMD package. But you're still falling back and reusing, not copying and pasting, big chunks of Porter at the same time. That would be the
Yeah,
hope.
that-
I
that
don't know
would
if
be
that would
ideal.
pan out, but because otherwise, people will see what is this hidden command. Eventually, we would have to expose it, and then we would support it wherever it was. And that's
Sure.
just I want to make sure before we get to that point that we had a chance to go. Do we really want it in what is otherwise a very user-facing command? And this is really more for operations and running Porter as a service.
So
We
at the very
can
least,
change the subcommand to not a service or not a service.
Exactly.
Yes, Porter, not a service.
Run, not a service.
Porter stay. So at the very least, I mean, the way that we have this all set up is it's as simple as just dropping in the server package into another binary once we get to that point. So
Yeah.
for now, for accelerating implementation and testing on our end, having it in the main Porter binary is definitely a lot easier. But yeah, we can definitely come back and say, we have these reusable packages now. Let's just split it out into its own binary.
Yeah,
Very
if you do
little
you
effort
have it in
there.
a branch? Because when I'm putting in the fix for quadruple config loading, which is what's happening right now, I could make sure that it works with your branch too at the same time if you want.
Yeah, it's all under. I'll send a link, but it's in,
Okay,
in
yeah.
my beauty eater, and there's a PEP 06006 branch.
I mean,
I'll
obviously, this
send
is
you a
just a
link to it.
ploy to see your code.
Yeah, of course.
Exactly.
Okay, that sounds good. Is there anything else you want to chat about with the grpc service? Sounds like we're fine with client per call for now.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest takeaway. We just do client per RPC and run with it.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. Then let's hear about the updates.
So
Yeah, I want to know what's going on.
yesterday we had a demo meeting with one of our big engineering groups where they demoed how to set up multi-cloud complicated test environments. And under the hood, all of it is Porter bundles. So this is going to be used by a couple hundred engineers, maybe several hundred engineers on a daily basis to set up and configure complicated test environments. And they also are calling for people to bring their own code and bring their own situations and work with them to write Porter bundles to expand. Ultimately, I think the goal is F5 is going to have a public-facing registry that's like, these are some big IP or other product test environments that you as a customer can set up and run as well. So we're getting some traction internally on Porter evangelism and usage that I think is going to be really cool. This is all from Greg Crosby. I don't know if you remember him. He's been on the Slack channel quite a bit. He just pops in with problems, and then I normally go fix them for him.
Yeah.
But
And to just be clear, we haven't talked to anybody internally about this public-facing registry. It's just
okay.
at this point. So yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately that would be great to have. And I'm not just F5, right? I would like to see lots of companies share stuff as Porter bundles, because that just is the right fit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to get a lot closer to that as soon as we have some of these the mix-ins as bundle feature. It'll make it a lot easier for us to decompose and reuse bundles in smaller building blocks. So that is exciting. I want to get us there as soon as possible. That's so cool. I would love to see this, like what the bundle looks like or anything. If you ever have a chance, maybe some other time, if you want to like walk through what the Porter YAML looks like or anything,
actually,
I'm curious.
There is actually one of the things I've been working on is a public-facing white paper to go over some of this sort of stuff too. So that's definitely on the horizon here. So And it's showcasing some of the stuff I think we've already seen out there with, like, there's a Joy of Nginx bundle that I did.
Yeah.
And there's the Nginx unit where it installs a kind cluster on your local laptop and puts an Nginx unit demo on it. So we've got those example bundles out
Yeah.
there in GitHub. And so there's a little white paper coming out that kind of highlights some of that and some of the value of Porter and lifting and shifting, taking great work that people already did and just putting it in this packaging format in order to improve how we can share and maintain, et cetera. So,
Oh my gosh, I cannot have this white paper soon enough. I will spam it.
I'll send you an
everywhere.
early draft. I need feedback.
Yeah,
I'm used to
100%.
writing code. I can write Go, not English. So,
Because I've been talking to people sometimes in the government and whatnot, and one of the first things people ask me when they're evaluating Porter is if there are white papers, case studies, anything like that, people who are serving as a reference, essentially saying we deployed it and nothing's on fire. Just give people reassurance that the way they're looking to use it, it's been done before in production. So like I said, I think people would be very eager to have something like that and be able to reference it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was kind
Sorry.
of it. Just we're starting to get some more traction on bundles, people getting familiar with Porter. We've had a couple other internal meetings just talking about Porter to different groups, and showing how, the gaps that it fills. Just to kind of come back to the this test environment stuff, the engineer who wants to go do the stuff with the VS Code plugin, he had architected this whole entire complicated Docker-based test environment workflow over a couple years. And then I was like, hey, have you heard of Porter? And he looked at it and he's like, this is exactly what I did on my own.
Yeah.
He literally took all of that stuff and said, let's just use Porter because it solves the problem better and I don't have to do complicated, bash stuff.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a success story internally of how flexible it is to use and also to just get somebody up and running on it.
If I was better with English, I would write a blog post about using Porter to not do as much bash stuff, right? Because I kid you not, like that.
You had you had something about that in the past, though. I remember seeing some presentation.
Yeah, glue code. Yeah, I've written a blog post or two about it, but it'd be great to like back it up with like, and here's something that we did concrete. You can see like this was the before, and you see the artistry of the bash, and then this is what it can look like when you're able to rely on Porter and mixins and things like that to kind of handle a whole bunch of the error handling and did this pass, did that run, how should I recover from this error, all that kind of stuff that gets gnarly when you're writing it in bash.
Well, and everyone has done it in bash too, right? We've all implemented all these super complex hacky workflows.
That's the programming language you never think to put on your resume, but it's probably what you use nearly every day.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this is great. Is there anything else you want to chat about or issues that maybe you're blocked on or need someone to take a look at?
Nothing specific. I mean, you had mentioned just in passing here a minute ago that you're, talking to companies and they ask for white papers. Like what's the status of Porter overall as a project and, in the community with the traction it's getting? What's the plan for 2023 to up that? Because I'd love to see this, continue to grow.
Have you seen the annual review that I submitted to the CNCF?
I know I went over it. Yeah, it talked about the amount of traction that the project is getting, and
yeah, because I think that may be the most helpful for like what we're planning. Let me just pull it up because my memory is it is what it is, right? So we've had more people looking at rolling things out. I would say that everyone I've been engaging with, their timelines are long. You know, no one's like, I'm going to start rolling it out in 3 months. It's like,
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about it for the next 5, you know? But I think that's really good. Internally at Microsoft, we're chugging along and finding more and more ways to use it all the time. I don't always get to talk about what we're using it for, but for example, trusted research environments. Azure's doing really cool stuff where they give you a way to set up a completely isolated, secure environment where you can load in sensitive data. So maybe you're doing analysis of people's health data, test results from, say, like COVID testing at like a country level, things like that. And then having a way that essentially it's a air gap secure environment in like special networks where you can't exfiltrate data, you can't copy paste, you can't get any of that information out there. And it gives people a way to securely run and create these nice environments so that they can then do their data analysis and research in. And they have just week after week are asking me for new things all the time. And I'm really excited. I think they'll be using the operator too when that's ready. So I think we're getting more adoption. I don't always hear from people in the wider public. You know, I find out when they send me a bug, and you find out that they've been doing a whole bunch of stuff just quietly and you just never knew. So I think one thing is we just need to know more of who's using it and how, and I think things like white papers and user studies should help maybe encourage more people to like raise their hand and say they're using it too. But the goals for this year, as far as like where we've allocated people and time and said like this is what we think we can hit, is the operator getting a release out there, and committing to stop breaking things, right? And that's why we're looking at, for example, changing the API group and things like that. My baby is the advanced dependencies and workflows, and also Mixins' bundles, which is a huge security win for us. Like from a technical standpoint, I want it for all sorts of selfish reasons, but from a security standpoint, I think we're really going to need that going forward, because at the moment we make big bundles that have oftentimes unrelated things, and credentials are injected in the bundles, and there's information overexposure potentially, depending on how much you trust the different components in the bundle. And being able to say with certainty, you know, I injected our cloud credentials and only our cloud CLI has access to it, even though Bob, for some other division, wrote me some great bash scripts to do something else. You don't have to worry that Bob ever got access to those creds inside of a bundle. I think that's the biggest
feedback I've gotten of what I've been working on. It's more like blog posts, like less formal kind of stuff, but they identified like, oh, wow, this really fits in with secure supply chain really nicely. And it's like, it's almost like you have to, there's a whole different set of users who are interested in the secure supply chain aspect of that someone who is maybe just looking to wrap their existing automation and make it easier to maintain and share don't necessarily connect the dots to, there's someone else who's interested in this from a secure supply chain.
Yeah, and SBOM is going to be pretty cool to get implemented as well. Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if you saw my post. These are things that we did not explicitly commit to as far as to the CNCF and the community, simply because of resource constraints. Like I couldn't with like a straight face say that we can do that, considering the big stuff we have on our plate here. But what I'm trying to do is maybe sign us up for Google Summer of Code or the Linux Foundation mentorship program, and see if we can get a student who would be interested in getting SBOM working for us. And then, you know, kind of walking through, okay, if we have signing and validation, how does that look? You know, what can we sign? What would be good things to start signing at the beginning? For some of this, I really need, I think that's the CNCF calls these angel adopters, someone who can work closely with us, who does have these requirements at the moment and can give feedback on what's what are reasonable scenarios? What would be a workable compromise if we need to make them? And have them vet things pretty early on, just like you are with the operator, for example. So if anyone knows or is themselves interested in SBOMs or attestations, talking about provenance or just standard signing, we really need people to just be willing to try builds and discuss designs with us, so that when we make something, it's going to be usable, you know, because I personally don't do those things. So if you just leave it to me, it's going to be designed in a vacuum, which is something we've been avoiding. And if either of you are interested in doing the mentorship as well, let me know, because I can only submit project ideas as long as I have a person to back it up. I can't like vary it and go, here's 3 cool things and maybe we'll get one. I have to commit and say, okay, if all of them got funded, I would have, for example, 3 people to work with these mentees. So right now I can just pick one and put it out there. If anyone thinks that they would have a couple hours a week for 3 months, either now or you know, later in the summer, we could submit another project as well and try to get more people helping and working on
I
this.
can ask internally, because we do a similar kind of summer intern
Yeah.
program at F5, and it even could be we try to get a summer intern that can help move some stuff forward too. So yeah. I think there's planning for that. It's going to be underway soon. So
That would be great. The expectation is just that as long as we have you know, a maintainer who can help provide direction and you know, reviews and just kind of make sure that we're shipping what we intended to at the end of the day, it would be wonderful to bring some new people on and you know, help them onboard into code and open source, some pretty hot tech. It's, you know, it'd be good stuff for students to work on. Does that help answer your question about just kind of what our plans are for the year?
Yeah, for
okay.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely, like I said, I just want to see more usage and adoption and evangelism and all that. And hopefully with this, and then also if we can get a white paper out there that we can start spreading, we can spend some more time getting other people on board with Porter. I was actually talking to my neighbor who is architect for AWS, and he was basically talking about how he's implementing the same thing that Porter does for setting up secure government test environments.
Yeah.
And so I pointed him at Porter. I haven't talked to him since then, but you know, there's just so many applications out there that could basically hit the ground running if they started using Porter.
Yeah. I mean, I swear we just need someone who's good at generating content. Because you know, at the very like lowest effort level, even just blog posts, you know, that put these ideas out there and try to fish out people who are interested in these same problems and finding a way to just reach them and start engaging with them and maybe offering to help with their initial adoption efforts. Because I do that pretty often, you know, because people just DM me. But maybe we should officially just put it out there and say we're willing to help people try out some of our newer features if they want to be an early adopter.
Yeah, we have kind of an internal call to action where it's like, bring us your automation, weary and poor, and we'll help you make a bundle out of it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm saying, if anyone wants to write a blog post, put stuff out there. I will, you know, you just submit it right to that repo and we'll get it published too. Or if there's you know, conferences you want to submit a talk to is another idea.
Are you going to Amsterdam?
No.
No.
We don't have travel budget anymore at Microsoft. I don't know if you know that.
Nobody does anymore.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lean
killed the
KubeCon.
travel budget.
Yeah. But KubeCon North America, I believe, will be in Chicago this winter. Next
so you can
winter.
walk? Is that what you're saying?
Oh no, I don't actually live near Chicago. But you know, I could round trip it in a couple hours. So that may be something that could happen. All depends on where this year goes, but it'd be cool to have one of these features further along and being able to show it at a conference or meetup or anything like that too, and just get people thinking about it again. I feel like we're in this uncanny valley. We've already been announced and out for a while, and we had big plans, and only now are some of those big plans being delivered. So we're trying to get people to take a second look.
Well, the holidays are over and people are finally getting serious about work again, right? So
Yeah, pretty much.
Exactly.
All right.
cool.
I think that's everything. Thanks, everyone. This was great.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Thank
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.